Well, hope everyone's doing well. We're going to be doing a little towing today, back and forth to Chicago, about a 8 or 10 hour round trip. And I want to show you a couple things about the trailering on this 2021 F-150 PowerBoost hybrid 4-wheel drive with the 6.5 foot bed. Great truck. We have driven it almost 30,000 miles, and it doesn't have a lot of issues at all. Especially seeing as how it was the first year of this model. When you plug in a trailer to the harness in the back of this thing, it immediately pops up with this menu, and it says trailer connection detected, and you get a choice of selecting a trailer, adding a new one if you don't already have it in the memory, or just saying there's no active trailer, and essentially to ignore it. So we're going to select a trailer that we already have in the system. And it is going to be, we've got a U-Haul 12 foot, just kind of a standard U-Haul 12 foot in there because we seem to always be towing with those. And then we've got our 12 foot travel trailer, same length, just a little bit different dimensions. And when you select it, it pulls up the name, the type, meaning conventional or gooseneck, the trailer trip, and that shows how many miles that you have towed it. And the average the cumulative or average miles to the gallon while you've been towing it. And you see that it's 9.9 for this one. With the U-Haul, I think it's around 12, give or take. Trailer type, whether it's got electric brakes or not, ours doesn't. Your trailer brake effort and your gain, and then your Pro Trailer Backup Assist. That has all the settings if you're going to be using the Pro Trailer Backup Assist, which we don't. I would imagine it's a lot more useful if someone's driving the vehicle who's not familiar with backing up a trailer, maybe one of your employees or relatives, that kind of thing. And I suppose it can be a little bit tricky backing up a gooseneck or a fifth wheel if you're not used to it. So that's there if you need it. We've never used it. I don't really plan to. But all that is stored in the system. And so, you can manage your trailers and, let's see how the U-Haul's looking. We've only towed 57 miles with the U-Haul, but look at the MPGs at 14 miles to the gallon. It's got a flat front. It's not a V-nose like this one is, but it's a lot shorter. And so if you look at our trailer here, it's just your standard 12-foot travel trailer. Again, it's got not that sharp of a V-nose, but it does have one. Single axle, I think it's like a 3900 GVW. And again, when you plug it in to the harness, the truck automatically detects that there's a trailer and takes you through that setup. You'll notice on the harness, it only has a 7-pin plug. If you're using a 4-pin connector, you've got to use the adapter, and that's a little bit on the annoying side, but can't complain too much. And so I'll tell you, when we did this same trip a week ago, it took 14 hours to make an 8 to 10 hour round trip, and that's because there was a lot of snow and black ice on the ground. It was very slippery and treacherous. A lot of vehicles off the road, so we just took it slow. I'll say this truck, the F-150, is a little bit less confident in very slippery conditions than other trucks we've driven and other cars. We've taken a Suburban through a blizzard before, and that thing just had no issues whatsoever. We took our 97 F-150 through a blizzard. It wasn't super happy. The problem is the weight distribution in these things is not remotely even. They're biased towards the front when they're unloaded or they've got no trailer on them. And that makes the handling in the snow pretty tricky. You got to load up the back with like sandbags or cement blocks, that kind of thing, to give them traction. Since it's an XLT, it doesn't have automatic 4-wheel drive. And to be honest, that's not the worst thing in the world. Because if you've got automatic four-wheel drive selected and you're driving in conditions that are snowy, slippery, and maybe on a turn, for instance, in order to engage that four-wheel drive, there's got to be some rear wheel slippage. And sometimes the rear wheel slippage that it takes to engage it is also enough to make you start to fishtail. And so by the time your automatic four-wheel drive engages, you're already halfway sideways. And so you just kind of either have to turn it on or off manually instead of letting it try to decide what to do, because frequently it makes that decision after you've already broken traction and you're starting to go sideways and fishtail. And so it's just not how you like to go through your day. But today it's a bright sunny day. Shouldn't have too many issues. Again, it's about an 8 or 10 hour round trip back and forth to Chicago to pick up a very small load of freight today. Maybe 3,000 pounds, 2,800, something like that. Not enough to max out the trailer. So that's it as far as hooking up your trailer. It's neat that the truck gives you all those choices and lets you store multiple trailers and keeps track of the mileage on them, so you can know when it's time to grease the bearings, maybe change the tires, that type of thing. And it also keeps track of your MPGs with each trailer if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. And it can also set up your blind spots. You know, it lets you put in the length of the trailer, so it'll adjust the blind spot warning, the little flashing thing that shows up in your rearview mirror. And so all in all, it's pretty well thought out. The fact that you don't have to adjust your trailer gain each time you hitch up a different trailer, that type of thing. And it also asks you each time you turn the vehicle on after you've hooked up if the weight has changed, so that, you know, if you've got a trailer with brakes and then you're driving empty and then you put a ton of weight into it, it's going to prompt you to maybe adjust your trailer gain, the gain on your brakes. So it has a lot of smart things like that it tells you to do, or that it helps you to remember to do. It's got a little hookup checklist. So maybe, again, for a beginner, to remind you all the things you need to do when you hitch up. And again, that Pro Trailer Backup Assist for people who need it. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world. If it helps people keep from putting the trailer in a ditch or smashing into something, or wasting everyone else's time at the boat ramp, waiting for you to take 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 tries to back your boat down the ramp, you know, that's not a bad thing. We talked in the past about the stability, to where when we had a loaded U-Haul 12-foot trailer, I think the trailer axles were loaded to about 5,300 pounds, 5,400. The truck itself was within a couple hundred pounds of the max GVW altogether, which on this thing is 7,350. And it just started swaying almost violently immediately when you turned on the cruise control with lane centering. And the truck was not able to make the adjustments fast enough to keep the trailer from trying to get sideways and take you off the road. And so that was a bit of a startling discovery a couple weeks ago down there in Indianapolis. And with this trailer, with our own 12-footer, empty and fully loaded, we have not yet run into that same condition. So it could be that the wheelbase, or it could be that, you know, something was going on. There was like a harmonic in the system, and the calibration on the cruise control, the calibration on the lane centering was just a little bit off. And instead of stabilizing the trailer, it actually made the trailer worse off. But again, we haven't seen that since, and we didn't really see it ever beforehand either. Any of the times we towed a U-Haul in the past. So it's just something we'll keep in mind. While we're talking about issues, a couple things about this 12-inch screen. We have had a couple of cases lately where CarPlay or Bluetooth in general has refused to connect to the phone. And we've had to power the vehicle completely off and wait 5 minutes and then power it back on in order for it to connect to the phone. And that's a little bit annoying. We also, on our way back from Chicago last week, had the CarPlay / Bluetooth disconnect and then reconnect a number of times over and over, and it couldn't make up its mind what it wanted to do. You see a little bit of swaying in the trailer today, and I think that is on account of the crosswind we're experiencing. It's fully empty, but it's got a little bit of a sway to it, if you can see that. And the steering is having to make very slight corrections. Again, I don't know if you can see that. But it's not at all dangerous, and it's not at all uncontrollable. It's not at all making itself worse each time it makes a correction, or like overcorrecting, if that makes sense. And so you can just feel it doing its thing. Again, you may not be able to see it, but it is making little corrections along the way to keep the truck and trailer centered and pointed straight down the highway, like it should be. All right, enough about that. Again, hope you all are having a great day. Got a little bit of weather coming in this evening here in the Midwest, and there's, I guess, a huge storm coming in the on the East Coast tomorrow, Sunday. And as usual, there will be a full-scale panic, and the supermarkets will be stocked out of milk and bread and all that kind of thing. And after a day or two, everyone will settle back down. All right, thanks, everyone. We will talk to you later. So we're just leaving out from a place in Hamtramck, Michigan, where we picked up a little bit of freight this morning. And now we're headed back to Ann Arbor, where the office is. It's sunny and 19 degrees. And so when it's a sunny day in Michigan and it's after Labor Day weekend, that's a bonus. Don't get a lot of those, actually. We got that 12-foot traveler trailer that we own hitched up, and we just loaded it to the ceiling. And it pulls just fine back there. The truck has no issues, obviously. It's only a couple thousand pounds in weight. But again, we had that issue last week when we had the 12-foot U-Haul hitched up, and it just started acting up and swaying almost violently back there, and we had to turn off the cruise immediately. The adaptive cruise control and lane centering, because the lane centering, the programming for it, did not seem to be able to handle a trailer that was loaded to about 5,000 pounds total weight. Maybe a few hundred pounds over that. And this trailer, we'll see how this one does. It's probably only about 2,000 or maybe 2,500 today. Interesting thing in Detroit, they don't really plow or salt all of the side roads in the residential areas. We were driving out here maybe half an hour ago, and a lot of these streets just turn into sheets of ice because it snows a little bit and then it melts and then it freezes up, and again, you don't put salt on it and it just turns into ice. We're on some of the larger streets right now, and that's just not an issue. And so we'll see how this thing does when it gets back on the highway. Again, after being loaded to about 2,500 pounds, maybe 3,000 pounds total weight. We got Google Maps on the CarPlay. We had Apple Maps. We We've been using Apple Maps for about the last week, really just to try it, see how we like it. It's got a few interesting features. It lets you basically share your location and your ETA with somebody so that they can get real-time updates as to exactly when you're going to arrive. So if you're headed home from work or something and you keep getting sidetracked, and you don't have to keep calling or texting ahead and say, hey, I'm going to be another 10 minutes or another 20 minutes. Apple Maps just kind of updates you with that, or updates them, and they can see your location on the map in real time. Some people think that's creepy, but you have the choice about whether or not you want to do it. And so it's almost like a more advanced version of Find My Friends or something like that. And almost 10 years ago, there was an app that let you do that, and it was called Twist. And you could send a twist to somebody when you were headed their way. And this is like 2012. And they could see you on the map, and they could see your ETA, and so on and so forth. And then that app shut down. I guess they couldn't get funding or something, or couldn't figure out how to make revenue with it. And they shut down, I don't know, around 2013. And it's been almost 10 years, and now you can finally do the same thing with Apple Maps. And I think you can do something similar with Google Maps. It doesn't seem to work quite as well. The times in the last week when we used Apple Maps for it, it seemed to work a lot better. And so one thing this truck does not have is a lack of power or torque. It's got 400 plus horsepower, 430 horsepower, I think. 510 pound-feet of torque. And so you never have an issue accelerating onto the highway and merging, passing, going up hills, that kind of thing. It's just not an issue. Like, not in the least. We've got the voice alerts silenced on the Google Maps because Google Maps is very talkative. And although it's got the least annoying voice out of all the navigation systems and apps that we've used, it does like to talk to you a lot. That's generally a good thing. You get a lot of notice, a lot of warning before you have to make your turns. You're never surprised by the turns you have to make. And that's not the same in other apps. Some of these other apps wait until the last minute to tell you got a turn coming up, or they don't tell you what lane to be in, or which what you're going to be doing right after you make that turn. Whereas Google Maps says, okay, in a half a mile, take this exit and then take a sharp right, or take this exit and then bear a left. And so it's just a lot more helpful in that regard. It prevents drama. Passing the Russell Industrial Center. Whatever that is. Detroit is full of all these old abandoned factories from decades ago. The Fisher plant, which I think will be passing coming up here shortly. The Packard factory, very, very large abandoned plant. I think they're getting ready to tear that down finally because it's just such an eyesore. I think they're tearing down the old AMC. Yeah, there's the Fisher plant right there, I think. Look at that thing. It's like something out of a movie set. And you hate to see that kind of thing because, back in the day, that thing employed thousands of people. And Detroit used to have the most wealth. It was where the middle class got started. It had the highest, highest average income or highest average household net worth of anywhere in the U.S. for a long time. And then it sort of peaked in the 40s, 50s, and then started to slide in the 60s, and it's never really recovered. And so you kind of just hate to see it. So we got adaptive cruise control with lane keeping and lane centering. And that weird beeping noise that the car's been making on and off for the last hour or so. There's no alerts on any of the gauges. Everything's, you know, within the acceptable ranges. There's no alerts on the screen, the CarPlay, anything. It's just making some weird beeping noises, as you can tell. But if you look at the little picture of the vehicle in the middle, it's got a blue halo that's sort of circular and wide around it. That indicates that lane centering is active. And what that means is that the truck is doing the steering. That's the truck steering itself. And then a smaller blue halo that's like small and square shaped or rectangular shaped almost. That indicates that active cruise control is active. Or engaged, I should say. And that just means it uses radar, LiDAR, a camera system to keep its distance from the traffic ahead of it. So you see the green number is 68. It is set to 68 miles an hour. It is only going 60 because that's the speed that the truck decides is safe. That's the, you know, based on the following distance that you set and all that. And so it appears to be working okay, the lane centering. When you turn on the blinker to change lanes, it disengages, and you have to do the lane change yourself. And then when you get back into the next lane of travel, the cameras detect that you're in a lane, and it picks up the coverage on the steering for you. So those little corrections that you see the steering wheel making, that is the truck steering itself. You look in the mirror, and the trailer does not appear to be acting up. It appears to be perfectly stable. And so whereas, yes, the steering is making little corrections, that's just natural because it's got to keep itself in the lane. It's not doing that to counteract the motion of the trailer. Because again, the trailer is really not swaying or acting up at all. And so as of now, we'll just say that lane centering appears to work fine with the fully loaded trailer. That's somewhere around 2,500 pounds. The one that we had the other day in Indiana, that was closer to 5,000 or maybe even 5,500 pounds, can't remember now. And Ford just did not set the calibration to be able to handle a trailer that was that heavy without it just trying to get away from you. Again, no issues today. Smooth sailing. All right, I think it's all for now. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon. And we'll let you know if we figure out why it's beeping at us like that.